As the two groups occupy the park, they stand opposite one another. Suddenly, Kim Yun Bum calls out to someone, and that's when we see that Lee Jung Woo has arrived with Young Jung Hyun. Kim Yun Bum introduces him to Jung Hyung Soo, who he has already met. That's why you guys are here, In Bum. But, alright. He then directs him to Lee Ki-ju, who is the head of Dong Jin High, a shifty-looking fellow. They inform Jung Woo of the fight setup. 3 people from each side in one-on-one fights. Whoever wins fights the next person from the other side until one side achieves 3 wins. This is to prevent an all-out rumble where a lot of people get hurt. Things like this tend to draw cops. It's how Suzuran and Hosen settled its beef when Zetun was in charge, and Hanake Goriko was the absolute strongest in that town. On their side, they've decided to send Jung Hyung Soo, a youngster named Yu Sung Ho, and then Lee Jung Woo. However, Lee Jung Woo objects and sends Kim In Bum in his place. He's certain that In Bum is enough, and he probably is. Kim In Bum is the guy who was in charge, and anyone would lose to Lee Jung Woo, so it's not like that makes him weak. At the same time this is happening, Jung Sung Tae tries to convince Yun Jae Sik to discipline Lee Jung Woo for his perceived arrogance. Good luck with that. However, Yun Jae Sik denies this because of everything happening at the moment. We find out here that the High Sun group is contacting the Yakuza for support. After some back and forth banter, the fights begin. Kim Bo Young almost steps up to Lee Ki-ju. She'll fight whether victory is assured or not. Trust me. However, a classmate calms her down. There's already an order. Yun Jung Hyun also nearly loses his temper when Lee Ki-ju insults Lee Jung Woo. Jung Woo stops him, however. He's not easily provoked. And usually, neither is Jung Hyun. His respect for Jung Woo is just that deep. And so, as Jung Hyung Soo steps up to fight, the opposing side sends in a fighter named Yu Chol Hee, a first year from Dae High who took over the school in his first year, similar to Jung Woo. The fight is brief. Hyung Soo gains a brief advantage when Chol Hee stumbles over a rock. However, his excitement gets the better of him, and Chol Hee comes away with the win. Chol Hee is a sturdy fellow. The next to step up is Yu Sung Ho. Sung Ho is a smart fighter. He baits Chul Hee with a throwaway punch and strikes him with a chop to the throat. However, Chul Hee goes wild and begins swinging, landing a lucky punch on Sung Ho. But he makes a mistake when he grabs Sung Ho by the collar, attempting to pull him in for a finishing blow. Sung Ho uses the momentum against him and slams his head into Chul Hee's chin. He made note of Chul Hee's weakness being his chin as of the last fight. Chul Hee takes the loss, and Lee Ki-ju steps up next. Now, this is where things get a little different. Lee Ki-ju has the praise of Kim In Bum. When Lee Jung Woo asks if Ki-ju is any good, Kim In Bum says that he's top class. Sung Ho even looks a little nervous as Ki-ju approaches. And it's true, I can say for certain that Ki-ju is strong. But he's something else. Something more important. Something more sinister. Lee Ki-ju is shameless. As he dodges a punch from Sung Ho, Ki-ju scoops up a handful of dirt and throws it in the youngster's eyes. He didn't need to do that at all. But it's easier. While I praise Jung Woo for his high character, and even chastise him when he doesn't portray that, I also understand a guy like Lee Ki-ju. Why work harder when you can work smarter? But I also don't agree to one-on-one fights. If I did, I wouldn't break the rules and do something dirty like this. As they say, word is bond. So while I am shameless, I also understand why integrity matters when dealing with people. You see, Ki-ju's actions incense the crowd. Everyone's pissed. People on his side don't say anything, but those under Jung Woo make their ire clear. Everyone has the same expression. Unlike everyone else, Kim Bo-young is vocal, but Ki-ju doesn't pay them any mind. He just moves in for the kill. By the time Sung-ho clears his eyes, Ki-ju is already throwing a punch. He puts the beats on Sung-ho, and the fight ends not long after it began. The finishing blow is halted by a shout from the crowd. The next fighter is ready to step up. An enraged Kim In-bum has stood up. Ki-ju is surprised that it isn't Jung Woo, but he spoke too soon. Though Jung Woo's expression didn't change much, he didn't care for Ki-ju's actions either. This causes Kim In-bum to relax. Everyone on his side knows what it means when he steps forward. They've already won. Ki-ju awaits him, and everyone on Jung Woo's side stands up to make sure they see clearly. Ki-ju notices this and is confused, but then Kim In-bum makes a statement. "I'll bet you 10,000 won that'll beat you in 10 seconds, as he sets a timer on his phone. Ki-ju scoffs at the notion and moves in to attack. But as he does, Lee Jung Woo returns the favor on Sung-ho's behalf, slamming a handful of dirt into Ki-ju's eyes. Then, he waits. He allows Lee Ki-ju to clear his eyes, telling In-bum to pause the timer. He doesn't want any excuses when he wins. It might seem like arrogance, but that's only if you haven't been paying attention. When the timer resumes, Lee Jung Woo finishes the fight in 9.5 seconds, knocking Ki-ju out in only 2 moves. And as Ki-ju sinks to the ground, Jung Woo's supporters cheer in excitement, but the next opponent steps in immediately. He sneaks in Jung Woo's blind spot and aims a low kick for his legs, but Jung Woo leaps into the air to avoid the attack. This seems to leave him open, but just then, Yeon Jung-hyun gives a shout. "Lee Jung Woo! Show them the difference in your level!" And in front of the entire crowd, the difference becomes clear, as Lee Jung Woo changes momentum in the air to spin behind his opponent. He can't comprehend what just happened, but by the time he tracks his eyes to Jung Woo's new location, a foot is already slamming down onto his neck. He drops, unable to fight any longer. As the crowd looks on in amazement, Lee Jung Woo didn't just attack. He performed an aerial bombing with his own body. The opponents never stood a chance. Both Ki-ju and the new guy are down next to each other. We never even got the second guy's name, but it doesn't matter. The crowd erupts into a roar as Ki-ju comes to find himself and his cohort absolutely defeated. Jung Woo tells Hyung-soo to take care of the rest. However, before he leaves, another familiar face appears in front of him. No Jung-rae, head of Ki-chun High, and best friend of Kim Jong-il. He approaches Jung Woo with absolute respect and asks to ally with him, turning his back on Dae-T and Dae-shin High. Lee Jung Woo has swayed a powerful ally, but he still has no interest. He tells him to deal with Kim In-bum and leaves everything regarding the school to him. When Kim In-bum warns Lee Jung Woo that he could betray him if the school is left in his hands, questioning Jung Woo's decision to give him power, Jung Woo tells him that if In-bum were going to do that, he would have already. He understands In-bum's character. He's not a dishonorable man. That's why he's willing to associate with him in the first place. You should only call him to fight. That's all. And when he says move, you move. That's all he asks for in return. Jung Woo doesn't lord over people or throw his weight around to feel big. He just knocks down whatever's in front of him at the time and moves on. The reason Lee Jung Woo is strong is actually a lot more basic than anyone could have imagined. It's because he doesn't want to be bothered. He takes his leave as Kim In-bum looks on, and the day ends in victory once more. Nothing new for Lee Jung Woo.